this is an important story, an interesting one in terms of the culture and how this is all working out. Let's put this up there on the screen. Netflix basically issued a memo to its entire staff where, in a very polite way, they say...
It's not actually that polite.
It's basically, if you disagree with what we are putting out, you can leave. So here's what they say. As employees, we support the principle that Netflix offers a diversity of stories, even if we find some titles counter to our own personal values. Depending on your role, you may need to work on titles you perceive to be harmful. If you find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the best place for you. And that went out to all of its staff. Also, with the basic acknowledgement that a lot of the people who led these internal revolts around the Dave Chappelle special have already been fired. And I think it's actually an important demarcation line in some of these culture war fights, which is that at the end of the day, the vast majority of the people who work at these companies do not care either way. Are they liberal? Yeah, probably. Did they really object to the Dave Chappelle? Maybe. But did they perceive it as personally harmful to their ability in order to conduct their jobs? No. This actually happened at Disney when this whole Florida speaking out against this, which has led to a massive decline in their popularity. You know, right now they only have 53% approval, which is nuts considering it's probably one of the most beloved brands in modern American history. Then you also look at Apple, which forced out my friend Antonio Garcia Martinez based upon some things that he wrote in his book a decade ago of which Apple was aware of. It had a tiny small percentage of Apple staffers who, called him a misogynist. They fired him. And now they fired all the people who went and organized that petition. And like I said, it's always been a tiny little percentage of these companies which have held them majority hostage. And I think a lot of people, I think maybe also this has to do with the declining stock price. I'm curious for your view, which is they don't have time to screw around with this stuff anymore. They can't indulge people's feelings. They're like, listen, we got to produce whatever we need to produce in order to up the stock.
Yeah, because they're getting hammered. They're bleeding subscribers.
They're canceling all these shows, Meghan Markle shows.
Yeah, they're considering an ad-driven model instead of a subscription-driven model. Yeah, which does kind of suck. Yeah. I mean, listen, I support the sentiment. What I would say, my own personal ideological view is I believe in democracy in the workplace as well. And so I think to your point, if you had, workers with more of a say in the runnings of these companies, you would have a sort of internal process for handling these disputes and handling these grievances. And so it wouldn't have to come down as just like a fiat from on high from some like CEO dictator. And that really struck me when another part of the memo, the newsletter reminded laborers that the company does not intend to treat them like family members, but rather like lion-hearted sportsmen on an award-winning athletic dream team, one on which any player can easily be benched or booted. So basically just kind of typical, like using corporate spin to say, we can fire you at any time for any reason, which unfortunately is the landscape in America.
I think that's fair. And I totally, obviously, I'm on the side of workers' rights. But I do think there is something to ending this family dynamic for a lot of people at these major tech companies.
Well, this can be kind of abusive as well.
Yeah, because they're like, you're our family. We eat dinner together. And by that, you better be at this office in order to have dinner at 8 o'clock.
That can be that can also be very manipulative because then it's like, and you see this in the, like the union busting rhetoric that they'll use. You'll have a manager come in and be like, oh, how could you do this to me? I thought we were like family, like how I treated you. They'll use this sort of like guilt and emotional manipulation to have you work ridiculous hours or do things that make no sense whatsoever. So yeah, in general, I just, I support workplace democracy and workers having to say in the workplaces. And to your point, I think if that happened, these very small fringe viewpoints could be heard, which they, fine for them to be heard, addressed and dealt with. And I think it would be more clear that actually the majority of workers don't feel the way that they do, but there should be a process for that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.